Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your multidimensional co-host, DJR Stewart,
And I
also
am
multi-talented.
and I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, April the 24th, the last Wednesday of the month. And if it is Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So, Tom, let's give a shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And also, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, the notification button, subscribe to our channel. You have to do it in that order, but just make sure you get all three done. And if you're here watching tonight, invite a friend to come watch with you so you guys will have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week.
all
With that
right.
being said, Tom, I know we have a jam-packed show. And, every now and then, Tom, we like to mix it up. And, most podcasts, radio shows, TV shows, is generally the hosts, the personalities who are responsible for driving the content and the direction of the show. Every now and then, we do like to turn control over to our audience. And this is kind of going to be one of those shows where tonight we're going to hope to get some audience participation because we have a number of people we want to discuss who are making news, and we want to get your feedback, your opinion on what you think. And these are all people who claim that the problems that they're facing are due to racism, and we want to get your feedback. So this is a time for you to educate us to help drive the content of the show by sharing your comments. So with that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best.
All right. So if I heard you right, this is a audience participatory show. So
Yes, it is. Don't be shy.
We want to hear opinions. We want to hear what you have to say about some of the topics that we have on night. But before we do that, let's get to our birthday babies for this upcoming week, Jimmy. So let's see who the stars are aligning with this upcoming week. And if you do have a birthday over the next 7 days, happy birthday to you as well. So let's get started. First, on today, April 24th, we have a very talented, multifaceted actor, producer, Derek Luke, whose birthday is today. If you are an avid movie watcher, you may have seen the film Antoine Fisher that starred in Washington. Also, I would say just as equally, and really his introduction to the big time was Derek Luke, a phenomenal actor. He's also done some stuff behind the screen as well. So we want to wish him a happy birthday today. Any of y'all that have him in your phone, make sure that you wish him a happy birthday. Next, we have another birthday coming up. Any of you who are a sports fan and a basketball fan in particular, you're probably going to know this guy here, the great Tim Duncan. Jimmy, if not the number one of the top three forwards to ever play the game in the NBA.
He doesn't get his justice. He's probably, you say top three, probably an argument can easily be made. He's probably the best power forward to play the game at that position. He's the GOAT. But he only has 4 championships, Tom.
Only 4?
You generally have to have 5 or 6 to get into GOAT category. So, yeah,
I didn't say the GOAT. I didn't say he was the GOAT. I would just say one of the, if not the best.
So he's definitely one of. But I would say in my category, I would give him GOAT status for his position at power forward.
So you would say he's the GOAT forward then? The GOAT power forward?
Power forward at the power forward position, yes. I would say he's the GOAT. Obviously, we want to play the position, the way he played it had an impact, the way he changed the game. And like I said, he brought 4 championships to the great state of Texas with the San Antonio Spurs. And I respect the fact, Tom, that he stayed with the team. He wasn't one of those looking to follow the skirt tails of somebody else and trying to stack the deck. He stayed with the team that drafted him and helped make them great.
This is very true. I would say I don't really know too many stars who stayed with one team throughout their entire career. Tim Duncan is one of them. Kobe Bryant is one of them. But if we look at the 21st century, it's very difficult to find. So he is definitely I'm not going to say the last, but when you look at the length of his career, the last of a dying breed of players who stuck with one team, made it great, and didn't go take their talents to another team.
Right.
So happy birthday coming up tomorrow. If you got Tim in your Rolodex, make sure you reach out to him as well. Next, we have another lovely young lady that we would like to acknowledge who has a birthday on April the 29th. Now, for those of you who are in the gospel community, you probably know this young lady, very talented by the name of Erica Campbell, a Grammy award-winning gospel artist who has been in the game for quite a while. She has sung urban contemporary gospel, Christian R&B, contemporary R&B. Started her music career with her younger sister, Tina Campbell, as a part of the group Mary Mary. Some of you might remember.
Oh, yeah, I remember Mary Mary.
Exactly. But she started her solo career in 2013, released a couple of albums, and won a Grammy. So happy birthday. She is coming up on April the 29th. Happy birthdays. Continue to do the doggone thing as well. All right, Jimmy. Another basketball great who has a birthday coming up on April the 30th, the Isaiah Thomas of the Detroit Pistons.
Bad Boy Pistons.
Exactly. Affectionately known as the Bad Boys back in the day, Jimmy.
In fact, there's a new documentary out on the Pistons.
Oh, really? There's another one.
Yeah, so maybe this is an old one that they recycled, but I just watched some of it the other night. So, but yeah, the Bad Boy Pistons, man, they changed the game of basketball for their physicality. You know, you knew when you played them, it was gonna be a battle. So you had to bring your A game and be prepared.
I think, if I look at the 20th century teams, I don't know if you would consider them to be the last tough, blue-collar, physical teams. The Pistons in that category, of course, the great Michael Jordan and the Bulls had to grow through the Pistons in order to actually reach their championship status. And so I would say that even though it probably wasn't a gentleman's handshake, it was a very tough baton that they had to pass, getting through the Detroit Pistons to become what we now know.
They influenced other teams too, like New York and Indiana. True. I mean, you just had to – that style of play was dominant that time. And like you said, you had to go through Detroit to get to a championship. And so you either played their style or you got beat up. So those are your choices.
Yeah, and of course, he was a player, Hall of Fame, NBA Hall of Fame player, also a coach as well. And so he's done a lot. And, Jimmy, probably two of my favorite NBA players, Isaiah Thomas, the Magic was one of them, and it was good. It's been a few years ago that they made amends with the relationship that they had kind of separated the two of them after they were friends within the NBA as force competitors as well. And I saw something a couple of years ago where they made amends on a relationship that had some rifts. So I was definitely glad to see that. Life is short, Jimmy. You never know how much time you have.
That's true.
I'm glad
Don't waste your time.
Exactly. I'm glad that Isaiah and Magic were able to sit down front to front, address, what happened back in the day and reestablish that core friendship. So happy birthday to Isaiah. Has a birthday coming up at the beginning of next week as well. So those are our birthdays for this week. Anybody who has a birthday, of course, that we have missed or that is coming up in the next week, happy birthday. On our chat line, we have Frederick B. Roberts, Esquire, Texas. So we want to thank you for joining us. Great evening to you as well, brother. Of course, I don't know that you knew this, Jerry, but Brother Roberts is one of our fraternity brothers, actually out of the Bahamas as well.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Must be nice.
Yes, has the African English accent as well.
Okay.
So thank you for joining us, and we expect to have a few more folks on the chat line. Of course, our good friend and brother Asar Al-Kabilan, who was on the show last week.
I missed you.
talking to Pan-Africanism as well. So we want to thank him for joining us this evening. So this is, again, a chat-in show. We're going to come up with a couple of stories, and we're going to see what folks have to say, and then add our spin to it and have a fun show. Before we get to that, we've got to talk a little bit about sports. We just ended the men's and women's NCAA championships, and now we've got the NBA playoffs that are finally in the first round. Jimmy, I know that you've been keeping up with the Mavericks, but in your opinion, what are the most interesting series in the first round to you, and why?
Well, of course, you can't look past Denver and the Lakers. Very interesting. I think this game 2, the Lakers gave it all that they had, everything they could muster up. They just didn't have enough in the tank at the end. And then, of course, losing on a buzzer beater the way they did, I'm pretty sure has sucked all of the remaining wind out of their sail. I don't think the Lakers have anything left in the tank to offer any opposition to Denver at this point.
You know what? I was looking at that game as well. I was looking at the end of that game. To have been up 20 points in the third quarter and to see it whittle away and whittle away. AD played arguably a very good game with the exception of the fourth quarter. LeBron, played a great game. I mean, they had a couple
quarters. He doesn't have everything left in the fourth quarter. But he's 39 years old, Tom. This is not really a young man, old man sport. And I think the criticism of him saying that he choked in the fourth quarter, he didn't choke. He doesn't have anything left. It's a grueling game. And to play the number of minutes that he played to try to put his team in position to win and try to hold on. Denver is a young team. They play hard. They just keep coming at you. And so I think Denver knows over a 7-game series that they're going to win this series, whereas every game the Lakers are fighting for dear life.
I mean, the question is it over? Is it pretty much academic and they're just playing these
Tom, yes, it's over. When you're up 20 in the third quarter and they come back and beat you at the buzzer, and that was really your best performance that you've played against Denver all year long, going back to last year, and they swept you last year in the playoffs. So the Lakers may muster up one win, but I just don't see it.
They should. I would think they would be able to at least get one, possibly maybe two. But
no, Tom, no two. You've been way too generous.
Not even two, Jimmy.
No, Tom. One is a stretch. I really, there's about a 70% chance they're going to get swept again. But they may, if Denver decides to rest some players, they may get one victory in. But no, two is a stretch, Tom. You're talking, lottery odds at that point.
You got your core players, LeBron, AD. You got an age team. You got a couple of young players. Jeannie Buss, what is your recommendation to her at this point? Because, look who the Lakers have got to go through in order to get to a Western Conference Finals, much less the NBA Finals. Of course, they brought LeBron there to win championships, plural. They won one. So where do you go from here?
Well, where you go from here, Tom, is this is a young man's sports. Yes. So Reese and Russell, you just have to start building around them. You keep AD as long as he can last. I'm not sure if LeBron's going to want to come back for another season after this one. I think it's year by year with him, but you can't make the dinosaurs the central point focus of your team anymore. So as now they, like I said, Reese is most likely the next star up, but they got a couple of other contenders. What's his name? Chocolate, pretty good young player. And there's another brother whose name I have a very hard time. So I don't want to jack his name up, but he plays pretty hard also. So
should they try to get some draft collateral for AD while he still got something left in the tank?
If most probably he has a no trade clause in his contract at his status time. So I doubt that unless you can offer him the give him an extension, pay him a bunch of money, that he would agree to a trade. And plus, LA is a pretty good market. So no, I would stay where they are right now with LeBron and AD. But like I said, start pushing some of the focus on and asking some of the younger players to step up and do more. You can't ride AD and LeBron to a victory, to a championship anymore. Those days are gone. They just don't have it.
Gotcha. Second series, the Mavericks and the Clippers. They're 1-1. The Clippers basically rolled them into a ground game one. Last night, the Mavericks came back, got a win in. What is your assessment after two games between the
Both
Mavericks?
teams are about 30 points under their average. I think the Mavericks average about 120 points a
They
game,
do.
and
They do.
the LA is about 115, 116. So they're both under their average. Whichever team breaks out of that first is going to win the series. I suspect that the Mavericks are. I think the Mavericks matched them in physicality in game two. It was a close game, very defensive game, and neither team shot extremely well. I mean, they shot below what they're capable of as far as putting points on the board. And that style, worked for LA game one, where they shot the Mavericks out of the gym. But I think the Mavericks now have figured out pretty much how to match them in physical intensity. And plus, now you're coming to Dallas now, where the home team is going to get the advantage of the whistle. So when you're the home team, you can play extremely hard, you can play aggressive, and get the benefit of the doubt from the refs because you are the home team. So, and if the Mavericks come out of the shooting slump and playing physical, I think that'll be enough to go ahead and get that monkey off our back. So I predict the Mavericks going to win this 4-2.
4-2.
4-2.
Gotcha. Well, we'll definitely know where we're tracking by next week. This time, if that's going to actually happen. The other series that I find a little bit intriguing, the 76ers and the Knicks. It's been a long time since the Knicks have been able to get in, to the playoffs with actually some momentum. And of course, you got the 76ers with, one of the biggest, one of the most powerful big men in Joel Embiid coming in. But the Knicks are now up 2-0. So this Doc Rivers-led 76ers team, they are on the ropes right now, and this is getting to be a pretty interesting series.
Well, just imagine if we hadn't let Brunson go, trade him away. And I mean, that guy is phenomenal. I mean, he's another Kyrie Irving for the most part. But if we had the team we have now plus him, this would be a slam dunk championship team. So I would say the Mavericks are probably one player away, one more impact player away from being able to compete with a Denver or the Timberwolves night in and night out.
Yeah, well, the challenge is, I mean, if you even look at Denver, I mean, nobody can stop the Joker. And, even if you say we're just going to kind of manage him, then you got Jamal Murray to deal with as well. And that dude is a straight beast. So Joker's going to get, even if you hold the Joker for under 30 points for a series, how are you going to stop Jamal Murray? And that's what the Mavericks would have to go through in order to get to the next level.
Yeah, some players I would say that you try to take the ball out of his hand like they do the Mavericks in double, but he passed so well in that they have other supporting players who are capable of beating you. So the best thing you do is just match them up one-on-one and play tough defense the best you can, and hope that you can outshoot them because they are a scoring machine. So if you can keep them under 100, you've done a great thing. And so that's what you want to do is just play tough defense on them. Try not to double because they pass so well, and everybody plays within themselves. And then make sure you bring your A game when it comes to offense. And you can have a chance against where you hurt against Denver is when you go into 2 or 3 minute shooting slump and they continue to score. So that's what happened to the Lakers. They went up, and when they went into a 4-minute shooting slump, Denver just continued to just chip away basket. Before you know it, they've gotten this under double digits and it's a single digit game.
Very true. True that. All right, Jimmy, let's go ahead and transition to our stories, see if we can get some audience participation and see where that takes us for the show. We've got a couple of stories.
Let me ask you this, Tom, before we go there. Let me get your your personal view on what you think. I know we hear the word racism so often. We've probably heard it so much now that I'm not sure if it has the same meaning anymore. But give me your personal view on what you think racism is, either from a personal perspective or a system or a systematic perspective. Give me your overall. How do you know that you've experienced some racism or?
Well, I mean, in terms of a personal definition, obviously we can go into that. And I know this is probably a setup, but
Sit up, no, Tom.
you've never answered my personal view on racism, but I do know this: racism is a construct that those who are in power, it's one channel, obviously, that can be leveraged. I mean, a lot of people, when you look at what racism is, what racism isn't, obviously you're looking at color and or ethnic boundaries in order to prescribe prejudice, derive opinions, and or in this case, really the most important operative is enforce power from one group against the other. Because I mean, quite frankly, racism is immaterial unless there is power or a power construct that goes behind it. Because there are some folks that may say, okay, well, somebody made a racist remark or someone made a racist statement. But the reality of it is, from my perspective, racism is more material to the degree to which it can be used to oppress an individual, oppress a group. And so that is not a clear definition in terms of what racism is not. But I think the most important thing is a power dynamic that is built around a construct that we might call racism, or
have we overused the word here lately? Let's say last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. No. And when I say no, I say no to the degree to which it is a theme, racism, that has been used when someone clearly knows that, let's say, if they are being, what is the term that we used to use? Some folks used to say driving while black.
Right.
Finding a good reason to pull me over, for instance. I'm pretty sure most black male have gone through this, but you're driving home from school, riding a bike from school, and someone pulls you over, finds a reason to pull you over, and the only thing that they can define is you fit the description of a person that we are looking for. Well, there's a whole bunch of people who fit the description that you're looking for. Some of them don't look like me. Why didn't you stop them?
Gotcha. Okay, so let's get into our list. These are people who have been in the news lately who have pretty much all attributed their, let's say, misfortune that they find themselves in to racism. So let's go through the stories, Tom, and let's give.
Karen, we have three ladies that you were suggesting, and one gentleman. Do you want to start with the gentleman or start with the ladies and end with the gentleman?
Well, let's start with the ladies. They're much more interesting.
Oh, okay. To you. All right. In that case, we will start with the Illinois judge, Christina Peterson.
Okay.
All right. And I'm going to kind of let you, and again, it was, as I was doing the research on this, a lot of these were very localized stories. And so some of you may not be familiar with all of these, with the exception of maybe one or so that is more of a national personality. So we'll see where we come from. And again, we're asking for folks, especially for those who have seen this in the news, we'd like your opinion. We'd like you to, there's no wrong answer per se, but we'd like
there's no wrong answer. Just we want everybody's opinion. And so tell me, you want to share the background story, or?
I'll let you share the background story. This is Christina Peterson, a judge out of Illinois who has come under fire recently.
Okay. Actually, Tom, you sure she's the judge, or is she the mayor of the township?
No, that's Tiffany Henyard.
That is Tiffany. Okay.
That is Tiffany Henyard. So she is the judge, actually out of Douglas County, Georgia, which is a suburb.
Oh, that's right. She's not from Illinois. Okay, she's from Georgia.
Yeah,
She's a neophyte judge. She's new. At
yes.
least this is her first time being a judge.
And you know what? I
And
said Illinois. I meant to say Georgia. So thank you
okay,
for
that's
that.
why I got thrown off when you said
Yeah, yeah,
Illinois. I'm like, wait a minute, the only person from Illinois is the mayor of the township.
right.
Okay, yeah, she's a new elected judge. She's a probate family court, I believe, is what she ran for and won. She had a base salary of about $96,000, and I guess the average salary for other county judges there was about $170,000. So she felt she was underpaid, and so she petitioned the court, the county commissioners, I think, who run the county courts, um, to say that it wasn't fair that she made so much less than her counterparts when she had the same law degree as they did. It doesn't, and she didn't factor in that, or didn't care. She didn't care that they had a lot more experience, and that was pretty much the average based on experienced judges and not for new judges. But but so anyway, the county commissioners approved about a $40,000 pay increase for her to settle her complaint, which brought her salary up to about $130,000. But here's the other thing, Tom, is that being over the family courts, she was allowed to, well, whoever the judge is that presides over that is allowed to keep the fees that the court assesses. And that ran about $100,000 a year. The person who had the position before her would split the fees with the county. Basically, he kept half, he gave the other half to the county. But it's up to the judge to decide how they want to split that, or if they want to split it at all. She decided to keep all of the money, which ended up being about $120,000 in court fees. So her salary went from 96,000 to over 240,000, just like that, which made her the highest paid judge and almost highest paid person in the state of Georgia, and she was newly elected. Now, she found herself in a bit of a trouble when she had a petitioner who came to a court who had a marriage license, that when her and her husband applied for the license, she was raised by her uncle. So she put her uncle on the marriage license as her father, listed him as her father. Now, the husband was black. I believe she was Asian. And later on, she basically discovered who her father was and decided that she wanted to get her marriage license changed to reflect who her father really is, the real name of her father. So she went to court to petition, and something like that should be simple. You come, and maybe you pay a little fee, administrative fee. They change the license, issue another one in a couple of weeks, mail it to you. Life goes on. But for some reason, this judge sentenced this lady, held her in contempt, sentenced her to 30 days in jail, or until she paid a $500 fine to get out. Only because she didn't like the fact that her husband was black and she was Asian. And it took 2 days, Tom, for her husband to scrape up $500 to get his wife out of jail. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was really just reflecting on how difficult it was for him to raise the $500. But she had a number of complaints against her. And subsequently, the commission that evaluates judges in the state of Georgia recommended her to be for her to lose her job, and eventually that's what happened. So she was booted out as judge, and of course she, when interviewed, she says that she attributes her problems being that she was a black lady in this county, the first black woman to win a judgeship in this county, and
Correct.
that this is because of racism. So what say you, audience? We want to hear from you and what you have to say, and let's get some feedback and get this conversation started.
And this is an interesting one. I do know Douglas County. I've been there a few times.
Where have you?
The county seat is Douglasville, Georgia. It is in a prior life professionally. Have been through there and talked with some of their folks who in the government space and in law enforcement and so on and so forth. So I would say it's decent size. I think Douglas County maybe has a couple of 100,000, or is a little bit under a couple of 100,000 folks in the county itself, but relatively low key, laid back environment there in county. So I am definitely familiar with this particular area.
Opinion?
I don't really particularly have an opinion. The fact that she is the first.
You've been there. You kind of know the environment a little bit.
The
The
first
people
black
there.
person,
What do you
definitely
think?
conservative. I mean, the fact that I guess it's 2024. She's the first black female judge in that area. That probably tells you a little bit of something about the demographics and the politics. Even though obviously they do have some mixed, it's definitely predominantly a mainstream environment there, but probably leaning more towards the conservative environment. So I can see this happening with her.
Okay. Well, I mean, she was elected.
Now the question is, okay, legally and statutory, they found a reason to let her go. I mean, obviously, some folks had a bone with her. Some folks probably weren't crazy that she was probably in the judgeship herself, and she probably pissed off the wrong people, or some people who knew the right people.
And let's just say this, that the commission that evaluate judges and DAs in Georgia, I believe before they could recommend someone to be removed from the position. But then Georgia just recently changed the law that allows this commission to actually expel DAs and judges if they find that they need to be removed. And so that's been a recent change. And so you may see more of these, Tom, because it's now this commission.
I'm sure we're going to see a lot of this coming
So
up.
This commission.
We're going to see a lot of folks who were elected officers who the state will be able to summarily relieve of their duties. I'm sure a lot of that is coming, Jimmy.
I believe it took
I know that is coming.
It took a recommendation to the state Supreme Court, and then the state Supreme Court would have to rule on. So it was always difficult to remove a judge or a DA in probably most states. But Georgia's now made it a lot easier to get a lot of these people out of those positions through this commission. So, any feedback on the chat line? We have any comments? Any opinions?
We have Brother Roberts who is on the line right now. He hasn't pitched in any comments for us, so nothing on the chat line right now in terms of comments and or opinions on this specific topic.
Okay. Well, before we move on to the next person, Tom, I will give you the last word on the judge here. And one other thing, I think there was a story that she actually opened the courthouse up on a Sunday to do a marriage, to do a wedding, and the sheriffs that were there, that were supposed to be there to screen the people, make sure no weapons are brought into the courthouse and stored somewhere. Evidently, the wedding party was late, and the sheriff officer, the deputies left because they were very late. And but then the wedding party came hours later, and she opened the courthouse saying to let them in, which is against the law, that nobody's allowed to come into the courthouse or the building without being screened first by the sheriff's office. So that was one of the other violations that they leveled against her during her hearing.
Gotcha. Well,
okay.
Given I guess the thing called grace flies out the window. I know she was recently got her seat as a judge, and so I guess grace for a rookie judge is out the door.
Yes, and certainly, Tommy, and plus, when we're in these positions, don't necessarily do what you think or you see other people do who've been in those positions, because the rules may not apply to you the way it applied to them. So just let that be a word of caution, and to be as professional and above board as you possibly can. Don't cut any corners and say, well, it's just the way things are. I can get away with it because my counterparts have gotten away with it also. You may not be able to get away with it.
Now, I will say this. The sheriff And Douglas
Mhm.
County is kind of a growing diverse county. The sheriff of Douglas County, and I just remembered this, is a black male,
I
Sheriff
believe
Tim
so.
Brown. Yeah, I remember. I've met him on a couple of occasions. Pretty nice guy. It's been probably about 3 or 4 years since probably at least 3 years since I've talked to him. But he's probably been in office for at least 3 years, so to speak. And
I
he
believe
does.
I saw him in the interview when he was talking about the security for the courthouse building or the county
Yes,
building, so which he's responsible for. And Tom, I guess really, how racist could the county be when you've elected a black judge, family court probate, and a black sheriff?
gotcha. Absolutely. And the only, I think this may have been a comment from earlier. Our good friend Asar says white supremacy is alive and well in the United States. Now, we do have a comment from Monsieur Noor, which is the Seth L. Bailey travel bro. He said, did
Okay,
she, the judge, follow the law germane to the lady that she jailed? Was she within her right as a judge to jail this lady? Racism is the housing or the housing covenant contracts prohibiting blacks from owning homes in Highland Park. So that's, I guess, written. I don't know if that's formal or informal code, but I do remember a sister years ago who moved into Highland Park. She was one of the first black families who moved into Highland Park, and they caught hell. You and I both know Highland Park.
right. Well, Tom, to throw somebody in jail because they're an interracial couple, not the husband, but the wife,
Mm-hmm.
simply because she's Asian and she's married to a black man.
He said contempt of court.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we've gone through that. We
Yes,
probably have been in courts. Black folks have been in courts historically and been held in contempt simply because they
exactly,
were black and offended the court. But
exactly.
but we should know better, and we shouldn't do because we've been victims of this. We shouldn't turn around and do the same thing. So throwing that lady in jail, and in fact, Tom, like I said, it took her husband 2 days to scrape up $500 to get her out. So that lets me know these are not rich people, wealthy people that could just write a check for 500 and move on. And his wife had to sit in jail for 2 days for what? Just for being Asian and married and falling in love and marrying a
Well,
black man?
how do we know that that was because she was Asian? Or
What
do we
other?
know that it's because she was Asian?
Well, I guess that would be for the commission. That was their determination that the only reason she held this lady in contempt of court is because she was Asian and she was married to a black man, and that she's opposed to other races taking their good black men.
Well, I guess she is sticking with the long history of United States law of not being so blind and having prejudicial adjustment to folks who may not look like you. So that is a long-standing historical precedent of the United States. It looked like she's trying to keep with that.
Yeah, so we're not going to justify Tom by with that thinking. But anyway, let's move on to our next
All right.
person in the news.
All right. Our next story in the news, we have out of Illinois. We have a sister who, Tiffany Hinyard, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, who is in a little hot water herself. Matter of fact, recently she had a federal lawsuit that was filed against the village of Dolton and their mayor, Tiffany Hinyard, alleging a business license for a barbershop that was denied for arbitrary and capricious reasons. But obviously, this story goes a lot further than that, Jimmy. So let's talk about what's going on in this very small county in Illinois.
Now, yeah, I was kind of excited for the young sister when she got elected because she talked about doing some things for the village and with forest cleanup, and that she was going to focus on some areas, primarily some of the black areas that have been neglected, and as far as trimming trees and taking care of the parks and cleaning the areas up. And I think she started off on the right foot. Somewhere, somehow, things, I don't know if it was um, just a power thing or what, but somehow she got a little bit off track, and things became contentious between her and the township and the people there. And when they began to come to the city hall and whatever their weekly, monthly meetings are to address complaints, she basically closed city hall down. Where basically, the meetings were canceled, and people just basically didn't have an outlet for their frustration to be able to voice their legal right to address their leadership and with their complaints. So I think that may have made it worse. And then there were issues of contractors saying they weren't getting paid, invoices going unpaid, and now there's issues about money. Now she made
on I think folks using the money to go on vacations to Las Vegas, and
now she makes a pretty good salary. She makes over $20,000 a year as mayor of this little village, which is
that's a lot of money for a place that's
a lot of money for a little town like this. So I don't think,
and I believe it's also predominantly black too, isn't it?
It is. So I don't think she would have her hand in the cookie jar when she makes a further good salary. But as far as counsel about budgeting and paying invoices and keeping track of the money, now there may be some loosey-goosey things going on there. But as mayor, I'm pretty sure she has to sign the checks, sign off on some of this stuff. And then there were some questionable expenses on her city credit card that I believe she may have charged some things and then reimbursed the city for the charges, like small stuff. I mean, like a meal or a lunch, or we ain't talking about anything major like buying a car or something on the city credit card. But I think there may be some rules against using the city credit card for personal use, even if you reimburse the expense after that. So I think that there may be some issues there where we just play a little loose with the rules, and maybe that's the way things have been taking place in the little city up until that point. But when people are upset with you and want to build a case against you, all the norms, like you say, well, this is the way it's always been. Well, but what do the rules say? So that's why I said, we need to focus on making sure that we follow the rules and not do what others have done, because when the rules may not always apply to them the way it applies to us. So we make sure that we're following the letter of the law. So when complaints are filed, that you're protected by making sure that you've done the right thing. And by saying, well, Tommy was mayor before me, and he used to do it all the time. But y'all didn't say anything about Tom. Well, no, that was Tom. You're the mayor now, and we're upset with you, and we're filing the complaints against you. And now we've got the federal government involved. So, I mean, that's where it is with her. But so what say you? Racism, Tom, or just playing too loose with the rules and the money?
Well, in this case, it sounds like, and again, I'm not there. I don't live in the city. So I don't know what the local politics are there. But, it's just very funny when certain folks sometimes get in positions of power that the rules change, the goalpost moves. Even if you are following the letter of the law, that doesn't matter if you don't have relative political or economic power to those who are trying to control the circumstances. And so obviously, some folks say that where there's smoke, there's fire, and that attends to a lot of stories. But, she's got cases having to do with misuse of funds. I think there's a sexual assault lawsuit that's been filed against the village as well. So there are a lot of things that are going on there. But it looks like it's what I would call similar to a strong mayor government setup in this village. And so clearly she has a lot of power. Ultimately, she doesn't have the power over the vote. But, that's what she has right now. I can't particularly say that it's an issue of racism, but I can tell you this. If you happen to not be white and male in this country and you're doing something like this, the hammer is going to come down on you a lot harder. Now, those are the facts, whether it is a case of racism or not. And there's folks who might disagree with this, but let's be very clear. Look at the optics of folks who are in power, who have taken millions of dollars. They don't typically look like us, Jimmy. We can, I mean, again, and we'll talk about, maybe we'll have time to talk about this brother who's been sitting up in jail for 10 years without a trial.
Do him next.
But I mean, one of the things that folks used to say, if you're going to go to jail for a doggone good reason. We still got a lot of brothers who are sitting up in jail for a couple of ounces of weed still. And you got folks who are making millions of dollars growing and distributing the same product.
Well, yes. And since that's a good segue, Tom, so let's talk about that brother next, because when I heard that story, I was like, this, it may have made national news, Tom, but this happens all the time. Maybe not to this degree, but there's so many people who plead guilty or take a plea just to get out and so they can get back to their life, their family, and move on in life, even though they may not be guilty of what they're being charged for. So, and this is one of them classic ones. And so let's talk about this situation.
And before we do that, we do have a response from Uncle Asari. Says electing Black officials is not a sign of the sense of white supremacy. It is a symptom and cover. If you think all is well because there are Black officials, that is racist in and of itself.
True.
Bill can sometimes be racist based upon who it is that is adjudicated against, at least a class issue or a financial status issue. And it just so happens that certain folks, we know this, Jimmy, happen to have less money, less net worth, and typically are not going to be able to afford the bail, afford a good attorney to be able to represent them. So it doesn't really take that much. It's under the cover. That's just the law. But again, it's just coincidental that a certain class of folks have social issues that are used against them.
Well, Tom, this next case, this is I'm going to say is a case of racism, and I don't use that. I don't throw that word around lightly and use it that frequently. But I was very disgusted hearing about this brother's story and the fact that the players involved are Black. To allow this to happen. So anyway, let's get into the story. And,
this is Karen Davis, so I'll let you provide some of the details on that, Jimmy.
Okay, so this young man was arrested. He and 4 other members. I'm not sure what the original charge was.
It was a murder charge. It was a robbery gone bad that turned into a murder.
Okay, and so him and 4 others were arrested and charged with this crime. And because of COVID and some other things, somehow he got sort of lost in the system. Now, the other 4 that were charged with him all had their court date, were all acquitted, found not guilty. So if 4 of the 5 were found not guilty, and I'm not saying like a hung jury, they're outright acquitted of the charges. So then it came to him. And somehow because of COVID, remodeling of the jail and the courthouses, Tom, he sat in jail for 10 years waiting for a court date. 10 years. It took a reporter to report on this story, and I believe a white attorney, not that it matters, read the story and decided to help the young man out to at least go represent him and see what could be done to at least get him a court date, which finally happened. So he got his court date. The jury was hung. I believe most of the jury were voting for an acquittal. There were a couple that found them guilty, and so they were stuck. They couldn't come to an agreement. So the hung jury. And so he was offered a plea deal. That just, okay, plead guilty to this and we'll let you out. Well, the judge over the case was a Black judge who I guess did not like the terms of the plea deal. and modified it. Tom, in the end, he gave him 19 years probation and 45 days to get out of the county. And this came from a black judge for a man who's already served 10 years in jail. The other 4 people that you also charged with this crime were acquitted. His jury was hung, and the majority of the jury wanted to acquit him also. And I would think in a sense of decency, after serving 10 years, I would just drop the charge and say, time served, everybody, and go home.
Exactly. Commuter sentence. He's already been stuck for 10 years, commuter sentence, and, slap him on the wrist and call it a wrap.
And then to give him 19 years probation, the man has no job. He's been in jail for 10 years. And then you give him 45 days to leave the county. What is he supposed to do to get his life back on track, Tom? I mean, where's the justice in this? And this comes from a black judge, who should, not that you're relating to criminals. That's not what I'm saying. But for him or anybody else in this situation, if he had been found guilty of the crime, would he really have served 10 years in jail the way things go today with overcrowding?
Yep. And this is a disastrous situation for this young man, because I don't know his age, but he looks relatively young. But I mean, it's very difficult to negotiate a gap that long of a period of time of employment. Obviously, there are programs out there that will help and support ex-felons to find employment. In the best case, you become an entrepreneur and you figure out your way to become your own boss, and really focus on how you are going to control your own destiny, because quite frankly, we live in the United States. It doesn't matter what state we live in, Jimmy. As a community, we don't control our employment, and therefore, generally speaking, we're not controlling our income, and therefore we're not controlling our destiny. And this has to do with everything pertaining to starting and building a family, educating your children, being able to be financially independent or financially free. So that's the challenge that we're looking with. We do have a couple of comments, not questions, but for those of you who are watching and or in the chat line, if you have any thoughts, any questions, any recommendations, we would love to hear from you. We got Ms. Tanya Hall. Thank you. Thank you. She said, very good conversation. Ken Manus, what's going on? It's been a while. One of our frat brothers, Jimmy, says good conversation as well. Uncle Asar, he said, all skin folk ain't your kin folk.
Said, I thought the ATL was our place.
Yeah, well,
only black lawyers down in the ATL.
This guy's in Alabama. This guy's in Alabama. This guy's in Alabama. He's not in Georgia.
He's in Alabama. I thought it was Atlanta.
No, this guy's in Alabama.
Okay, then it makes a little more sense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought he was in Georgia. Okay.
No, he's in Alabama. And we also have Miss Chastity. Thank you for joining us as well. She said good topic. So we want to thank Miss Chastity as well for joining the show. Again, folks, this is you tell us what your thoughts are, what your questions are, and what you think about these stories. We want your thoughts to be infused into the show.
Now everybody's speaking at the same time.
This is Houston County. Wait a minute, Jimmy. I think you may be correct, because this is saying Houston County, and if this is Houston County, this is Georgia. Let me see.
You're stumping ground.
I thought this was Alabama, but it looks like if they're saying Houston County, not Houston County, then this is definitely Georgia.
Okay.
Oh, let me see here. Wait, well, this says Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall announced. So this looks like it was in Alabama. And I don't know if it is pronounced Houston or Houston in Alabama, but it looks like it was in Alabama. In Georgia, it's pronounced Houston County. In Alabama, it is a much smaller county, and I don't know whether it is Houston or Houston. So anyone from that county listening, please do not throw any tomatoes. But Houston County in Alabama, much smaller place. And yeah, this is kind of out in the boonies.
And Tom, where's the support structure supposed to come from? You just getting out of jail, you being kicked out of the county in 45 days, your daughter and your mother, your mother and your daughter, which is all the reason he said he took the plea was so he can get back to his family and see his daughter. So where's the support supposed to come from for a man who's in Alabama, just got out of jail and kicked out of the county and given 19 years probation, which I guess he could still find himself in prison if he violates the probation over 19 years? Come on, Tom.
Yes. And this is, if we look at Houston and Houston County, this is in the southeast segment of Alabama, far away from Birmingham, far away from Montgomery. For those of you who know both Montgomery and Birmingham both have black mayors, but this is very far away from this. This is right on the border of Alabama and Georgia. And I have kind of traveled some of these areas, Jimmy, and this is probably not probably. This is not an area you want to get stuck in. I guarantee you that. I've been there. This is not an area you want to get stuck in.
Well, I hope it works out for the young man. I feel for folks who get squeezed in these situations, and really, it may have been best for him to stay in jail and to wait for a second court date, rather than take a plea with these kind of conditions hanging over your head. Gotcha.
All right. He will not get. Okay, this is coming from Monsieur Nure, aka Travel Bro. He will not get much support other than reentry programs.
Reentry?
Yeah, reentry. Basically, these are programs that are set up. You could have nonprofits and or quite frankly, some of the county agencies or county governments have reentry programs that will help provide support for those who have records to get back in, find employment. I think the key thing is finding housing so they'll have a place to live. Otherwise, what's going to happen is they're going to, short of that, get back, throw something through a window, hit somebody on the head so they can go back and have 3 meals a day. So reentry programs typically help them to find housing, try to provide some support so they can get them reconnected with family, ideally get them a job so they can take care of themselves. Because if they can't find a place to live and if they can't find a way to make some money, then they're going to be hitting somebody on top of the head so they can have a place where they can at least sleep and get 3 meals a day.
My concern, Tommy, if he had those things in place, maybe he drives back to the county to see his daughter, and get pulled over. And it's like, oh, you're not supposed to be in this county. The judge orders you out, and what are you doing back here? So, I'm not even sure that an excise order is even legal, but I guess maybe in Alabama it is. I know you can order someone out of the county.
Yep, and Jimmy, we are right at the top of the hour.
Okay. Well, perfect time and time. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up, and I'll give you the last word, and then we'll call it a night.
All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Of course, join us every Wednesday. Invite your friends. Invite anyone who wants to be intellectually stimulated and put in the loop with what's going on around the corner and around the world. Every Wednesday is Black Men Speak at 8 p.m. Central Time. If you have not, subscribe. Share this information, and of course,
notification bell.
Exactly, and come with your thoughts on any other topics you would like us to address, because we're not afraid to tackle anything. So we want to thank you for your support, and we bid you a good evening.